players out in the rural area. So I always had to either look at Winnipeg players, and I had a few that were local, which was nice, and we could travel together and commute. But yeah, it was definitely challenging, and it had its up and downs, but I never ever gave up. I had so many tough losses where I was like, oh, why do I even do this sport?
Yeah.
But I just love the challenge, and I love getting better and better all the time and working hard towards it.
Were you like involved, like, I guess growing up in school, were you involved with like any other sports like basketball or hockey or like softball, or was it just more or less strictly curling?
I played a whole bunch of other sports. I played volleyball. I really enjoyed that. I went to actually the summer games for beach volleyball. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow.
And you wouldn't think so because I'm so short. But I played libero and I loved it, and it was great. And I was really good in badminton as well. And I played a lot of that, and did soccer in the summer. And I actually started playing softball when I moved to Gimli and met my husband. That's when I started playing. So that was about 13 years ago now. And I absolutely love the sport. I play it all the time, and we go in some tournaments, and I was hoping to play a little bit more this year, but I guess that's not going to happen.
The other thing that I want to mention just from the Newfoundland perspective, because I do have a whole bunch of curling related questions here as well, but it's like you teamed up with Brad Gushue. Now, Newfoundlanders are known for A, talking fast, B, having our own lingo. Were there times when you were like, I would have loved to see it if it was actually recorded on a live mic, but were there ever moments where you're like, Brad, can you translate that into English for me? Because I don't understand what you're saying.
No, actually, he wasn't too bad. But some of the things I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I didn't really notice too much with Brad. And yeah, I've noticed it before, like with other different people, but like I didn't really notice too much. So there's a couple of words that he always said, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's your thing.
That's your thing. Yeah, it's like I always think about it because when I'm playing hockey up away, so like if you're playing, I play ball hockey like goalie, and you have girls and guys in your team, but like buys, we say the word buys a lot, so it means like everybody to me, but it's almost like I would tell people when you get scored on, it's like 3-0. You're like, buys, come back and play defense. And you get a few girls looking at you like, we play on this team too. I'm like, it's collective. It's not just boys. It's everybody. Or the one that I use not so often in hockey, but I've used it on the phone with friends where it's like, stay where you're to till I come where you're at, which is basically like, stay there, I'm coming. But they're like, what do you want me to do? And I'm just like, oh, right. Totally different language barrier here. So it's like, just stay there. That's what I mean.
Next time I really got to pay attention more, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure there's times that he was saying things and you were just there like, you're like, I think this is what he means. I'm just going to go with it. And then it's like, totally. That's what I totally meant. Good job, Kerri. But yeah, there's definitely terminology that we have down here. But have you ever made the trip to Newfoundland?
Yeah, we've played a few times in Newfoundland. I believe I've been there about 3 times. We won our very first Tier 2 event in Summerside.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that where it was?
Summerside, like I think there's a Summerside PEI.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's right. That was the trials.
Yeah.
Where was the... Oh, I can't remember where it was.
No, that's fine. But like, yeah.
We won our very first Tier 2 event there. And it was amazing. And all of Newfoundland watching, and because Brad was in the final, and holy smokes. Yeah. And I was so nervous because I was like, oh, this is a lot. Like a lot of people.
They're a lively bunch.
Yeah. And such great support for Brad in Newfoundland. It's pretty amazing.
Did you get the chance to experience George Street? Did you get scooped in?
I did get screeched in. I think that was 2 years ago we got screeched in. That was fun. I couldn't say the line though. That was a tongue twister.
That's fair. Everyone has a different opinion of the screech in. I'm glad I'm a Newfoundlander where I don't have to do it, but then there are Newfoundlanders that are like, I'll get screeched in every weekend. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why? Like you're already living here. But I want to talk a little bit too, of course, because we mentioned this before the interview started, but I was interested, I guess in the aspect, because I didn't know about you, but doing a little bit of research about the Métis part. And, you know, I mentioned this off before the interview started. I like how he just like kind of ducked in the background. I wanted to point it out because I thought he like literally slid in the background there. But like, talk to me a little bit about this, because there is a pro and a con. And I'd like to know what your opinion is, because the pro of it, I think, is if people don't know necessarily your background, they can't give you a label. They're just treating you as an everyday, ordinary person. Mm-hmm. But the negative side of that is sometimes you want people to know that because it brings awareness. Like for me now, knowing your background a little bit more, I'm like, man, like think about the Métis community or the Indigenous community that kind of looks at her now and says, she's winning in curling, she's doing it. And could be other Indigenous people out there that are like, well, if she's doing it, I can do it too.
Yeah, exactly. And my dad is Métis, and I just recently got my Métis, working on getting my Métis status. With COVID, it's been a little slow process with that. And it's definitely like I just, a friend of mine, I approached him with sponsorship, and he was like, well, is anyone on your team Métis? And I was like, well, I am. And he's like, really? I didn't know that about you. I was like, yeah, not a lot of people do. And so it's something that I'm proud of. And being a strong Métis woman and chasing my dreams and doing what I love to do. And I hope to empower other Métis women and children that they can chase their dreams as well. I've just always been so determined and to just keep working hard at something I love to do. So, and they have been absolutely so supportive of us. It's amazing. They reach out to me all the time and congratulating us, and it's such an honor to have such all their support behind us, and it's pretty amazing. And just knowing that they'll always have your back, I'm very grateful for all their support.
Yeah, because I can imagine, like, it's when you were saying about getting your status and, like, you know, getting, you know, obviously the sponsorship, like it must kind of, like, obviously you felt pretty strongly to go to get this sponsorship, not to like kind of boast it, like, oh, like, look at me, I'm Métis or whatever, but like to kind of, I guess, give it somewhat of the significance of saying, like, hey, just in case you didn't know, like, this is who we're sponsored by. And, you know, it gives them a little bit of exposure as well. Like, it's like me coming on this podcast and saying, okay, I have a disability. And then, you know, it could be like 3 weeks down the road, it's like Sturge Weber Foundation or whatever, you know, is a sponsorship of this podcast. It's not like the overall big factor, but at least it gives it a little bit of an awareness, or gives them a little bit of like, hey, just in case you were wondering, this is something that you maybe want to check out, or maybe want to know a little bit more about. Is that like how you kind of, I guess, looked into it, or felt like with a sponsorship, like it's giving them a little bit more exposure, but at the same point telling people like, hey, if you're out there and you're belonging to this community, you know, check me out. Like, I can be a role model for you, but at the same time as you can do the same thing I'm doing. So just letting you know.
Yeah, I definitely want to be a role model for everyone out there, and being a Métis woman, and just having all their support is amazing. And it's like how that sponsorship came about was just one of my friends, and we talked and set up a meeting with the Métis Federation, and they sat down with us. And and with COVID, we haven't been able to all physically meet, which is challenging. But it's pretty amazing to have a background like this. And I'm still learning so much more about it too. I'm still doing research and learning more each day. And and like even my girls talk about it, and we've been learning together. and teaching each other. So yeah.
The other two, like, I guess, kind of personal questions, and again, you can always kind of pass on it or tell me like, yeah, fuck you, like I don't want to answer those, but I want to answer because I did think it was interesting. Like, again, there's always like tidbits about, you know, whether in like athletes where you realize like either something that they do before a game or after a game or something personal that you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, I thought it was kind of interesting, you know, where your brother passed away due to like a snowmobile accident, of you having the necklace, and I think it has like a picture of you and him in it. But like, tell me like the significance of that, because I don't wear it because I'm afraid I'll ever lose it, and my parents would probably shoot me if I did. But I have like, it's like just a Newfoundland necklace, but it's like a ring on it that has B, and it stood for I think it was like my grandfather or great grandfather, and it just happened that I ended up being named Bryan, but they gave it to me, and I thought, okay, well, I don't want to lose it. Like, it might have more value to me down the road, obviously, but you don't want to like have the value and and then lose it after, and you're like, oh, like I didn't take care of it when I was 14 or 15 and now I lost it. But explain how the necklace idea came to be and the importance of having that with you.
Yeah, this was something my brother and I shared together. I remember the last time that I curled next to him. It was actually here in Gimli. We were playing in one of our play downs for provincials, and we both looked at each other. We're both on the same sheet, and we just said, let's make this a flet duo and win this.
Yeah.
That was something I'll carry with me forever, and I definitely miss him every single day and think about him so much. My girls talk about him all the time, which that helps. And yeah, I just have that necklace with me, and I also have a little something in my pocket that I always rub or put my hand in my pocket. So if you see that, then you'll know what I'm doing. But I always make sure to have something with me when I'm on the ice. And I also have a necklace with my grandparents too. They were huge curling fans of mine, and they passed away in a head-on car accident just before I had the girls, actually. And yeah, so that losing those three were very, very hard for me because they're just such big supporters of my curling as well. And so I know they're looking down on me, and they are very happy for me. And I miss them every day and think of them every day.
When you're not curling, when you're not doing your work, when you're not like, you know, in a care home telling people like, hey, this is why I took that shot. Hey, and Mary, can you leave me alone? It's been 4 years. Tell me like what kind of things you do for fun. Obviously, you probably interact with your kids. Otherwise, I'd hate to see your answer be like, no, they're over in another room. I don't interact with them at all.
For things that we do for fun, definitely go down to the lake lots. My parents just bought a place just north of here, and they just recently got Sea-Doos, so nice. We definitely, I can't wait to go and test those out. We love to go camping. That's and we really rough it. Like, it's not like luxury camper, you know. We do the whole tent and everything. And we also do, just a lot of outside stuff, quadding, and the girls absolutely love driving the quad. They, my husband at first was like, they can't drive it. I was like, yeah, they can. I was a country girl. I was on that quad at 7 years old and ripping around. And so the girls, they put on their helmets and they go drive around, and they absolutely love it. And we go around through the back. We got about 160 acres here, so we got a lot of property, and we like snowmobiling as well. And so yeah, we just love the outdoors. I
want to ask you too, and like a fun aspect as well, is like, what are some of the, like, some music that you listen to, or some artists that you enjoy, or like some TV shows you binge? Because I know a lot of people now are talking about the Friends reunion. We actually had like one of the recent acts that we had on was like, oh yeah, I cried learning about Rachel and Ross. I was like, I didn't cry, but I was interested to find out that like two of them had a legit crush on each other, but they were both in a relationship at the time. Like, it's fun stuff like that. But what kind of stuff, I guess, is your, I'm not going to say like dirty secret or dirty deed, but what kind of things do you like enjoy on the side, like TV shows or movies or?
Well, I am a huge country fan, so I listen to a lot of country music. Aaron Pruchette, actually, when my brother passed away, my friend Roz was good friends with Aaron, and actually he came out and visited us at our house. And,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was very special. We played a broomball tournament the next day, and yeah, I'll always remember that, and we'll have a very special spot in my heart. And also for TV shows, Yellowstone was huge for me, and The Ranch.
Okay.
That's also a big one. And Grey's Anatomy. Constantly watch that. All the drama.
Yeah. I was I was big on, like, I have a sister-in-law that like watched Grey's, and she's a nurse. I think like she's now in a different role at nursing, but it's just like, I get it. If it's something that you're interested in or your field, it's great. But like, I don't think there's really, I shouldn't say that I shouldn't, because when I was younger, we had like Radio Free Roscoe and Radioactive for like broadcasting. But I don't think there's a lot of like drama related, I guess, like news or podcast or like, you know, shows. Cause I can just imagine, like, I could probably be the one that creates it, but it just, I don't know how you'd create it. It's like, oh my God, we got a breaking news story. It's like, oh, wow, what happened today? And like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right, so that's just an everyday news story. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. That's not a TV show. So the last thing I want to get into you with is I want to play just a quick game of how Canadian. It's not a trivia question. Don't worry about it. But like, okay. We have it's pretty much, we ask certain acts when they come on, like, tell me a very Canadian story, which like Canadians would obviously understand. And we've had different acts on, like Splash and Boots, Sarah Nurse, Canadian hockey player, and they give you a story of like, the one that always comes up is when you open the door for someone and it's like, then they have to run to the door and you say sorry. Like, it's almost like, oh man, like what is the appropriate amount of time that you have to open the door where you don't feel like you're the one feeling guilty, where it's like, I seen you come and I opened the door, but it's like, oh man, you were too far in the distance. Or they mentioned about like Tim Hortons, when you offer someone a Tim Hortons coffee, it's very Canadian. But like, can you think of a very Canadian moment that like you realized, okay, that's something very distinctively Canadian when you went, say, elsewhere in the world?
I can't really think of one, but definitely something that was Canadian for me was when we were in the bubble, and since not being able to have any of our friends and family there, Kristen reached out to all of our family and friends, and they made videos dressed in red and white, waving their Canada flags, and it was absolutely amazing, and had so many tears and laughs, and oh yeah, all the things that they were doing. Don't mind my dogs. Sorry, they're rallying at each other.
He's agreeing. He's like, that was very Canadian. I loved it.
That was,
See, he agrees. He's basically saying, don't forget me. I was wearing red too.
Yeah. And this is Briar. She's, we just got her. She is 4 months old. Yeah. So, and her name is Briar.
Is it after the Tim Hortons Briar?
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's like, why didn't you name her Scotties?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Because it's not a Scottish dog, or it's not like, you know, what you expect it to be. Yeah. But I don't know if you've ever done this. I've done it probably a few times, because I've seen now on LinkedIn that they're trying to get the Vancouver Olympics for like 2032. And I'm remembering the Vancouver Olympics from 2010. And it feels weird to me, because I'm like, I'm getting very old when that's like, you think about it as yesterday. But like the atmosphere in Vancouver, like I kind of get emotional to the point that there's a clip or a video when they do like the end package of the Olympics. And I think it's like Brian Wilson saying, for the last time, good night from Vancouver. And I'm like, no, not good night from Vancouver. Yeah. Can we keep this going? But like we had, because I think Cheryl Bernard is one of the ones that we have on coming hopefully soon. But I want to ask you, like, who were some of the curlers that you kind of looked up to? Because there's a great story with Cheryl Bernard of she's winning the silver medal. And a lot of people would be down about winning a silver medal, but she was like, no, I earned this. I won this. And then you have, you know, obviously from Manitoba, Jennifer Jones, which I'm not even like hugely into curling when I was younger. But if someone mentioned Jennifer Jones, I was like, of course she's in the final. Of course she's doing this. It's always Jennifer Jones.
Yeah, definitely. And Sandra Schmirler was a big one for me too. I grew up watching her and idoled her. Like, she was amazing. And yeah, Cheryl, love Cheryl. She was someone I also looked up to, and she reaches out to me quite often. And Colleen Jones, she was amazing.
Yeah.
Growing up watching her as well, and Kelly Scott, another one. Like, there's just so many amazing curlers out there, and I watched curling. That's all I did, was just, even if curling's on TV, I watched it. Even now I do. If I'm not even playing, I'm watching it. And I've been starting to even watch back more of my games as well, because I never used to like doing that. I was like, oh, I don't like watching myself.
That's how I feel.
But yeah, it's definitely so many strong women out there in our sport.
I mean, and then you get the next wave of it, of course, with like yourself, Rachel, Laura, creating, and then obviously there's others as well. But like, to me, when I see it on TV, it's like, those are like the big three that I'm watching. But it's just interesting because like, you're always competing against each other, and it's like, okay, well, they're, like you said earlier, your friends on the side. But to me, it's like, okay, that's a great next wave. And you still have like a few from the older generation that are still playing. And I feel like when you go up against them, do you ever, like, if you idolize them, do you ever have that moment where it's like the out of body experience where it's like, I'm up against someone that I idolized?
Well, I had a struggle with Jennifer Jones for many, many years. I think I lost her about 20 times in a row. So that one was challenging. I was like, oh, gotta beat her sometime. And when I did, it was like I was relieved.
It's like, I finally got one. I got one.
Yeah, one, and I think I got like 20 more to catch up. But definitely playing against Jen when I was younger, and it's nerve-wracking too, right? Like, you're like, oh gosh, she's Olympian, and you're playing against her, and like, we would hang in for some of the games. We'd be so close, and then all of a sudden we'd give up a big end, and we're like, thought we had this one. But yeah, it definitely had a lot of games against Jen.
Yeah. I guess like my last question to kind of close it out, then what we do is we'll do like a brief promo and shout out at the end. But my last question here would be, tell me, I guess, either a very funny or a very embarrassing story about your curling career. And I feel like you're going to be like, I'm not telling you anything about my curling career. Come on. I'm not telling you a funny or embarrassing story.
About my curling career?
Yeah, like about like something that could have happened in curling that like you look back at it after and you either laugh or you're like, man, that was embarrassing, but still you're like, okay, it was embarrassing for the time, but you learned something out of it.
Oh gosh, I really got to think of this one. Oh man, I can't think of anything. Like, you have to warn me about this one.
Yeah. No, that's fine. If you can't think of one, I guess my other last question would be like, tell me something that you're looking forward to, or like a major accomplishment that you look back at and like that kind of made you either more confident or peaked, or like, made you think like, okay, we can go further. Because it's like anything. Once you win your first, say, championship in something, you're like, okay, so I've got that past me. What's next?
Yeah, when we won our very first Canadian championship, that was pretty special. And then to win back-to-back, I never dreamt about that. And to do it, I was like, wow, that's pretty special, because not a whole lot of teams have done that. Yeah. So to be able to do that is pretty special. And definitely, I'm really looking forward to what our future holds with this team. And we're already starting our off season and working extremely hard to get better. I know our Worlds performance we were disappointed with, but the grit and the determination that we showed to fight back from a 1-5 start, that's something to be very proud of. And I'm proud of my teammates for sticking in there and getting that spot for Canada.
Yeah, I feel like if you ask Jennifer Jones the same question, she'd be like, what are you talking about? All I do is win. I'm like, okay, easy there, Jen. Like, relax.
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Kerri Einarson for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.